Hi, I'm Jesse Hilbert.
Hi, I'm Charleigh Hilbert.
And welcome
to Arthropod
Adventures. This is
the
Season 3.
Season 3, Episode 1, The
Rusty
Fire.
Today's arthropod can be found, if you're lucky enough, nestled in a flower
Yes,
or flying around in search of one.
yes.
I say lucky enough because back in 2017, it was listed as federally endangered. When we always say, can
You guess what it is?
Today's episode brings us to the world of the rusty-patched bumblebee. And as I stated in the opening, unfortunately, it was placed on the endangered species list not that long ago. But we will talk more about that a little bit later. This episode was a special request. So, to the dedicated listener that requested it, we hope you enjoy. The scientific name for the rusty-patched bumblebee is Bombus affinis. You like that word, don't you?
Yeah.
Bombus. Last season we talked about the etymology of Bombus when we did the Arctic bumblebee. It comes from Latin word bombos, meaning humming or buzzing. Exactly what you would think about with this insect. Its species or specific name, affinis, also comes from Latin and means having affinity or connected to or related to. The decline of the rusty-patched bumblebee is just devastating, Charlie, right? Yeah. As it was the first bee from the continental United States to be put on the federal endangered species list. Just a year prior, Hawaii had placed 7 species of yellow-faced bees on the list. That's pretty sad, right, Charlie? That means there's not a lot of them. Yeah. Before all of that, they enjoyed prosperity across 2 countries and many different U.S. states. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I quote, historically, the rusty-patched bumblebee was broadly distributed across the eastern United States and upper Midwest, as well as into southern Quebec and Ontario in Canada. This historical range continued south to the northeast corner of Georgia and reached west to the eastern edge of the North and South Dakotas, as noted in the Species Status Assessment in 2016. End quote. So Charlie, it was in a lot of different places, right? Yeah. While there has not been one exact reason for their great decline in the population, there is a lot of evidence to suggest a few items could have aided in this drop. Loss of habitat means people are chopping down and changing the places where these creatures live. How do we feel about that? They can't see you. You got to use your words. Thumbs down, yeah. You see, loss of habitat means people are developing the green pastures and things are getting paved over and they lose not only their food source but their homes. And without potential home site, they can't reproduce or lay their eggs. And this also happens because of farming for both plants and animals. Livestock, like cows and sheep, Charlie, they compact the earth, which makes it difficult for the bees to make their homes. That means they walk on it, go stomp, stomp, stomp. Go ahead. So, Char, monocultural farming or growing a single crop in a given field has also hurt this bee because they need multiple flowers to thrive. When only a single plant is available, it makes it difficult for the bees to have food when that plant blooming time is over. Having a variety gives bees a chance to collect from spring to fall. This is good for your home garden too, right? Plant native. Oh yeah. Oh, it definitely is. So we plant native plants that flower at different times. Many of these farms also use pesticides to prevent their crops from being eaten. These pesticides can have a huge impact on the pollinators as they travel from flower to flower, or as it rains and the pesticides roll off the plant. They can seep deep into the soil, thus collecting in the bees' home. The pesticides are found in this water and contaminate the bees, or even drown in their homes due to poor drainage. Where they were and are found, they enjoy a variety of habitats from prairies and marshes. What? As we discussed, these places provide a pantheon of flowers. That means a lot. of flowers as a food source, and also places for them to dig their home. As the queen will stay buried, she'll stay buried during the winter. They need this land, and they need it not to be disturbed. While it's commonly unknown fact that most bees are solitary, that's not true of this bumble. They build communal homes underground with a single queen and many workers. That was a weird sound you made, John. So these homes are oftentimes leftovers from burrowing mammals, and they can go a few feet into the ground. In some rare cases, in urban areas, these bees have been known to go above ground nests where they can, although this is not ideal for them. I know that I often find myself confusing bee species as I try my best to identify them in my yard or out on adventures.
This is a cow sound, and this is a horse sound.
Yes. So I will do my best here to describe them in detail and to help, right?
Help.
Quick review for any new listeners. Bees are insects and have 3 body parts: a head, thorax, abdomen. Good. So, Charlie, for the purpose of identification, we will be looking at the thorax first. That's the middle part.
And this is your thorax.
That's your thorax.
Is the thorax.
That's your head, yep.
Head,
so, Charlie, in females, which would be the workers, there are 6 abdominal segments, while the males have 7. Although I said we would start at the thorax, and then I just talked about abdominal segments. So that was silly. So, we come to these segments first because it's how they get their common name, the rusty-patched bumblebee. The first segment is yellow, and on the second segment of the workers, you will find a small rusty-colored patch, which can really vary in color from brown to orange to red. The patch does not cover the entire segment, and the rest of it is yellow. Segments 3 and onward are black. Now let's travel back up to the bumble to their thorax, which is, I said, where we were going first.
Why did you say that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But this too is yellow with an oddly shaped T of black in the middle. The University of Minnesota's Bee Lab has had some tremendous views and descriptions that were of great value to me and should be checked out in our show notes.
Show notes never stop learning.
Yeah.
In acronym.
An acronym, yeah. The top part of the T extends to the bee's wings, and then that small strip down the center of the thorax.
And it dips down where the water comes down into his mouth.
What? No. Towards the abdomen. Our featured bumble, often mistaken for a few different species that have similar patterns. So you'll have to look closely and maybe even snap a picture for proper identification. That little rusty patch is a good identification match, though. I was interested to find that the queen looks much different from the workers and does not have the T markings on their thorax or the rusty patch on their abdomen. Their first and second segments are all yellow, with 3 and beyond being all black.
And it says B.
This is a B, yes.
B.
And there's another E. There's 2 E's.
And S.
And the S would say bees.
B.
Good. So I was also intrigued to learn that these bees have short bases, which I didn't know was a thing, Charlie, and yes, it is. And I will again refer back to the University of Minnesota's Bee Lab. Check out the picture. No, not yet. Almost. Once the cold weather arrives, the queen will survive and will do so by going underground from late fall to spring when the weather begins to warm again.
When it gets warm, it will never come back ever again.
Anyway, it always comes back. In the early start of her colony, she will make mostly worker bees, but as she gets late into summer, she will lay eggs that will produce males and new queens. Once these have reached adulthood, they would leave the hive and find a mate and reproduce. The males will die, and the females will find somewhere to overwinter, because who runs the world?
Girls, who runs the world? The boys.
No, not boys, not in the animal world. In any animal world, girls rule the world.
Nope, boys.
No. Their mating ritual includes some sweet dance moves and aerial displays, which is where the insemination actually occurs. As I mentioned, the males die because who runs the world?
Yeah.
And the females keep this new genetic material stored with them until spring.
No boys.
No, the boys are dead. And then she will fertilize their eggs internally before laying them and raising them. Once those eggs have hatched, She will have the help she needs, and the workers will take over raising the young and foraging for food. And in a crazy display of power, the queen secretes a special chemical from their labial gland that prevents any other female workers from laying eggs. This is also why hives are able to produce a new queen if their current one dies, because the chemical is no longer present and repressing the workers. The queen will lay her eggs inside wax cells, and this will keep her eggs, larvae, and pupa safe. The eggs will not stay eggs for long and will hatch within a couple days. Initially, the queen and eventually the worker bees, once the hive is established, must feed the young larvae pollen. This, they don't poop out their mouth. That would be strange. What? No. This is critically important as the protein from the pollen will help these young bees develop, and there is an apparent. No. Pollen does, yes. And there is an apparent connection between the amount of pollen a larva eats and its size in an adult. A larva just looks like a wiggly, white nothingness. They don't have eyes, wings, or legs. They will stay in the larval stage for about 2 weeks, going through 4 instars in the process. When the larvae are ready to pupate,
it will come out.
The workers will seal up the cell.
And they'll sealing up the ceiling.
The pupation process will only take about a week. Once they emerge as adults, they must emerge as adults. I'm not losing my place. They must wait for their thin, tiny hairs and wings to dry before they can contribute to the hive. This only takes a few days. But we all know bees or pollinators are important ones to boot. But believe it or not, people, more than honeybees, pollinate. If I had to pick a second famous bee, it would probably be the bumblebee, although not the rusty-patched one.
And the rusty-patched is not sexual bee.
Okay. Probably its cousin, the eastern bumblebee, is the most famous.
And the most famous?
So, they are all great pollinators, and I learned through my research that they have an amazing way to dislodge the pollen from the flower. The Xerces Society put out a great article on the rusty-patched bumblebee that was a great resource. And I quote, "They perform a behavior called buzz pollination, in which the bee grabs the pollen-producing structure of the flower in her jaws and vibrates her wings musculature, causing vibrations that dislodge pollen that would have otherwise remained trapped in the flower's anthers. Some plants, including tomatoes, peppers, cranberries, require buzz pollination." End quote.
You'll eat it.
Tomatoes and peppers are some of our favorite fruits, right, Charlie? So thanks, Bumbles. But they also need and thrive on native plants. The best thing you could do for this bee and any of all native pollinators in your area is to plant native plants. I strongly encourage you to find a native nursery and start planting. Ours is earth tones. The blooms will last longer, the plants will thrive better, and the pollinators will love you. I have noticed such a difference in our yard, Charlie, since we started adding native plants.
I'm 32 years old would be too...
You're not 32 years old. Yes, most bees only last a few weeks. So the next time you come across a bumblebee or a bear wasp, as they are called in some countries, examine her abdomen and get a little closer to see if you have encountered the famed and unfortunately endangered rusty-patched bumblebee.
It could go into... a bear could catch a swallowed fly.
Okay. And Charlie, remember, if you see something, say something.
Say something.
There is work being done to help these pollinators. If you see a rusty-patched bumblebee, be sure to take a picture and send it to your local entomologist.
Just say
All right, so thanks for listening. All right, Charlie, ready? We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have an arthropod you would love to hear about, want to tell us what you think about the show, or found a mistake, send us an email at arthropodadventures@gmail.com. And always follow us on Instagram at arthropod_adventures_podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay
inquisitive and never stop learning, and show your show notes.
And look at the show notes.